Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Pastor Sean, coming to you with another video for the week on Sunday. And for the Death Truth Radio podcast, what I would like to talk about for today's video is going back into what I talked about a year and a half ago, where I made two videos on Christian music being generic and my opinions on Christian music, whether it be the Hillsong stuff, metalcore, deathcore, whatever it is, hardcore music, or whatever it is going on in the genre of Christian music. And I wanted to give my opinions on another thing, I guess, that had to do with the fall of Christian hardcore music. So, anyways, I watched this video and basically just waiting for 11 o'clock to roll around so I can go order my pizza. And the video, I got it right here. It's called What Killed Christian Core, Tooth and Nail Records Under Oath, Sleeping Giant, from the punk rock MBA. So, I completely agreed with most of the video. Being that I still stand by my stance, I had, even going all the way back to high school. The thing is that I guess the main focal point that I wanted to talk about for this video is the fact that a lot of these people who are in Christian metalcore bands who said that they were Christian were not, either they weren't really saved and they were pretending they were like using the cross as like a crux or something to have people look at their records and buy them, or that they were like lukewarm Christians where they were half in, half out. And I can understand I can definitely understand the problems of that, because I'd say about half of my walk when I became saved in June 2009 to, it's actually 2019 right now, April, just turned April, so my anniversary is coming up. Half of that time I would consider myself being a halfway in, halfway out Christian. Not proud of it, but meaning that I just feel it's kind of guilt inside for living the best that I can in the best way that I can for Jesus, and to walk with Christ on the path to the cross as much as I possibly can. But then, like on Friday and Saturday nights or Thursday nights or whatever, I start doing stupid things that are sinful. I mean, I repent a lot, but I wouldn't say that I'm like someone like Christ exactly. Like, I don't have my cup full of Jesus completely. It's just, I would say my cup full of Jesus is like it's 70% or something. So it's definitely something I should pray about. But, when it comes to drinking, drugs, whatnot, stuff like that. But anyways, and other things. It's actually a couple of other things too. Point being is that I actually remember the time that one guy from that band, I don't remember which band it was. I'm going to say As I Lay Dying, or it was one of those bands, who paid for a hitman to kill his wife. And this was 2013, 2014, something like that. I remember that because the day that I found that out, I was actually at the Calvary Christian church in Tucson, and I would say that was actually the last day, at least for me, like inside, that was the last day I quit going to church. And I remember that specifically because one of the guys I talked to was telling me about how he just saw the news post that day. So, a lot of those bands, from what I found out, even though I'm just going to throw that out there, I don't like metalcore music. I can't stand that music. I can't stand thrashcore. Whatever core is in it, for the most part, I don't like it. I don't like those bands. I don't know, Sleeping Giant, For Today, like all those, Under Oath, August Burns Red, like all those kind of bands. That's not my genre of music. I don't like that style of metal. So, okay, just turn the air conditioning off. Like I was saying, I don't like those kind of musics. I find them to be really corny. I can't stand the style of the whole emo core mixing in with metalcore and stuff. I'm very happy that most of that stuff, predominantly, it's pretty much the scene's dead. So it's something that I really haven't cared about, even though the last time I listened to these bands at the time was when I was going to that pastoral training ministry program that I was in for a year, where every guy other than the kid who's, now, he's now an adult now, but other than him, like every single guy that I hung out with at that group all listened to that kind of Christian music of metalcore, like the bands I just mentioned, Under Oath and all that crap. So, I personally don't like that music. I don't like deathcore. Any kind of core, I'm not into it. I like punk music, and I would say I like black metal and I like death metal, and I do like some new metal. I am, unapologetically, I am a fan of Cold Chamber. I like them. Recently, I've actually been getting back into Limp Bizkit. I've been like the bands that I listened to when I was in middle school and early high school. Not pop punk like bands, like, because I know a lot of people that were into that, like Blink-182, Sum 41, stuff like that. Not into that music. I don't. When it comes to punk music, I like the crust punk, and I like just punk music, like the hardcore punk, like Dead Kennedys kind of stuff, Bad Brains, Suicidal Tendencies, like stuff like that. And I do like some power violence, but I don't like I do listen to a lot of melodic death metal. I was going to say I don't listen to anything melodic really, but I do listen to a lot of In Flames and Children of Bodom and stuff. Anyways, point being that this is not my genre of music. I would just listen to it because other guys around me were listening to music like that were Christian core bands. So, anyways, one of the things that was touched upon in the video that I just watched is the fact that this guy who was from some band called Osiris or something talked about how he shed his faith like a cocoon. And there's actually a thing I want to read here from one of the comments I saw in the video that made a lot of sense. So, this guy said in the video here, as a Christian metalhead, I personally think most Christian music kind of sucks. Pretty uninspired music, style, and even lyrics. The problem with Christian media is that most often than not, they use religion as a crutch to draw attention instead of just making good stuff with faith as a focal point. If you're making music for a religion that is supposed to be the most important aspect of your life, you should give it your all. Also, I'd like to argue that the experience of those who converted to atheism, quote unquote, happened mostly because they were over time exposed to the rampant atheism still present in hardcore metal music. And their faith just wasn't as strong as they thought. What with being raised Christian and all that stuff you actually mentioned in the video, referring to that guy I just talked about. So, it's talking about like a lot of those guys. What the guy said, I remember I think his name was Big John. He was one of the guys he used to hang out with at the Calvary Chapel place. And he said that in an interview he watched with a guy who paid a hitman to kill his wife, he said like 9 out of 10 Christian core bands, those guys aren't even saved. So they're not even like an offshoot. They're not even like Catholic or Mormon or something. They're not even like a little like a 1% of Jesus kind of thing. It's just, they just use it to sell tickets and to get rich, pretty much. So I'm not sure if I would take that guy for what he said as like credible from, the guy from the vocalist from that band who paid to kill his wife. I wouldn't say it was exactly credible, but he was in the scene. He was of it. So, it's just something where, like, you can't, anyway, so the guy was so a different guy that was talking about from some band I was watching the video said that he shed his faith like a cocoon, and that I'm sure had to do with a lot of it. There's just constant pressure for being like a Christian band in a scene that's mostly atheist or satanic or ones of pagan, because there's a lot of that in metal. My all-time favorite metal band is Morbid Angel, probably other than Mortification, and it's a lot of lyrics about pagan gods and whatnot. Sorry, I got allergies here. So, I'm not exactly sure what the point was of making the video. It's just I felt that I was getting something from the video and I just needed to say something about it, about like that genre and whatnot, and how it does, like, a lot of the people from the 80s and the early 90s remember Kenneth Copeland, and I mean, there still are people like, Clef O'Dollar and like people like that, and Joyce Myers, who own like freaking airports that are at their houses, and they have these big elaborate churches that they don't even teach at and whatnot, because people just keep going to Target and Best Buy, or even going on eBay and just, still forking out the money. So when it has nothing to do with being saved, it has nothing to do with being Christian. Jesus is going to see these people when they're dead if they don't repent of all the nasty just greed that these preachers are all a part of. And it's going to be really ugly on the day of judgment for these people, like really bad. So I've never considered, I can understand why bands back then, like Suicidal Tendencies and even a lot of satanic bands, were always attacking the church in their songs, like in their lyrics and how the lyrical structure. I can completely understand that. Up until I was 21, I was full on satanic at that point, like for about 7 years, from like just edging my way closer in mainly the philosophy of Anton LaVey at the time, where I was just edging closer to that, but then also performing witchcraft spells and things like that. I already have a bunch of videos where I talk about this. That's because you just watch those videos on that. But for the demonology videos. Anyways, so it just resonated with me where this guy shed his faith like a cocoon, and really it was like upsetting, because a lot of these kids in these bands just are only Christian, really, and only saved and whatnot, and are following the best they can the teachings of the Bible, but it's because their parents put that on them, or their mothers put that on them, or the scene that they're in put that on them, so they have to, act accordingly. And it's not genuine faith. They don't have their cup full of Jesus. They're just going through the motions because they think they're not questioning anything. I'm not saying that in like a negative way, or trying to make you rethink the fact that you're saved, for the people that watch these videos. But the thing is that it has to be genuine in how you approach your, like, okay, you have to think to yourself, okay, so why am I saved? Like, that would be to really sit there and think, okay, why do I follow Jesus? Why do I go to church? Like, why am I doing these things? It's something you have to ask yourself. Another thought on the subject is that this is a really good idea it's a really good and wise idea to have fellowship at a church, especially if you work at a church, because you're basically forced, even if you don't feel like studying or not, you're basically forced to have Bible studies with people to understand what it is that you need to be learning, spending time in the Word with the Lord, reading Christian study books, going to cafes, to hang out with people, to disciple, and to help people, because a lot of it is like a kind of therapy for the people at the church that you go to. When they're asking you for advice or for prayer and whatnot, it also actually helps lift you up too. So my thought on that is that, being that I said a lot of these people in these bands have essentially walked away from the church and felt that they really were an atheist inside this whole time, or they really were just a Buddhist this whole time, or they really were this or that, or whatever the reason may be, when in truth, that is wrong. It's always Christ is the only way. And, it's just something that's just kind of sad. So, I mean, with my personal testimony, it was the opposite way. It was going the other way, where I was raised Mormon until I was 14 and left the church. And then I turned into a Satanist for about 7 years. And then so my story is backwards as to, like I was saying, that these, like the parents and the crew and whoever else around these kids are putting pressure on them, to be Christian. So and then later in life when they start leaving these bands or whatever, and then they decide they're just, being saved, it just really wasn't for me. It's really awful. It's just really not a good thing when people come to this kind of conclusion. I know who my real self is. It's because you didn't get to make these decisions yourself. You should test everything. But I've tested everything. I've done a whole lot of research, and the one that makes the most sense is following Christ. That's the one that works the best. I've had personal experiences where he's spoken to me on several occasions. I mean, I could just go through a list of examples. But anyways. So, the moral of this video is to really test out what it is that you believe in. Like, really have it tested. Really have it be beat against the rocks. And find out, like, what exactly is it that... Like, if this can be tested in debate, or if this can be tested around your friends or whatnot, or around people that you know, are you going to be able to hold steadfast to what you believe in? Because I know, for the most part, I know that I can. There have been 2 moments in my life where I walked away from the church and tried to become a pagan again, but tried to worship Odin, which was it's just such a ridiculous, stupid idea. I was just very confused at the time and had almost no Christian influence at the time. But anyways, you have to be able to test it. So, thanks for watching. This is the Death Church Radio Podcast channel. Once again, this is Pastor Sean, and God bless.